So,
Oh, thank you. Oh.
okay. In this segment of Vancouver's Beyond Chinese, I'm joined by Handwash. And he's a Vancouver rapper, producer, songwriter with a growing fan base. Handwash is from Hong Kong, and he addresses themes of identity and hip hop music. And he's also a member of the Third Culture Collective, which includes other performers with roots in Hong Kong. And welcome, Handwash.
Hi,
It's great
Charlie.
to have you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity on Vancouver today. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get one thing out of the way quickly. Where did the name Handwash come from?
So I made this name back in 2019. I was just kind of joking with my brother. He used to make a lot of clothes, and I really liked the idea of like hand washing clothes for some reason. And at the time I was making music, making beats with my computer, and I really liked the idea of making something that's a little bit more organic on computer on some like ones and zeros. And I thought hand washing was a good like metaphor of that. Yeah.
Interesting. And how would you describe yourself as an artist?
Hmm. I think it's been changing a lot. Like I used to not relate to hand wash as much. I guess I would still call myself a hip hop based like artist. Like I make music uh rooting from the roots of that. Like yeah.
Okay, and we'll get to your new single, which wasn't quite so much hip hop
Yeah.
later
Yeah.
in English.
Mhm.
But one of the things I'm curious, do you still self-identify as a Hong Konger, or because you've been in Canada for a while now?
Yes, uh, I guess I still do in some ways, but it's a constant thing that I think about daily, where I question myself if I'm still Hong Kong. Is Hong Kong or some place that I actually have to be in to be a Hong Konger, or is it a part of me that I bring with to Canada? Uh,
Interesting. And where do you find inspiration for your songwriting?
yeah, like I'm I find so I find inspiration, like particularly like in my daily life. That's kind of how I like my music, or like to me, what's creative about it is that I draw inspiration from a lot of routine or like simple things that human does, not as grandiose as like many other like hip hop artists, and I like to draw inspiration from like family, from like more like subtle relationships between people. Yeah,
And can you give an example, like in one of your songs?
like I guess the one you just mentioned, Juggle, was just like hearing a lot of people struggling, since a lot of my friends are like immigrants to Canada. They've been they would always vent their struggles with like having multiple jobs, juggling friends and like families where they are not here, and just having like this multi perspective of a person, and I find that very interesting. So also I felt like it was I wrote it during summertime. I wanted everyone to kind of be happy, so I wrote like more of a like a chill out anthem, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, chill out is the sub headline, but in parentheses, one of the things, it seemed like a real departure for you in a way. First of all, you were doing it in English. A
Mhm,
lot of your raps are in, and hip hop is in
mhm.
Chinese,
Cantonese. Mhm,
Cantonese, as
mhm.
we say in North America. Um, what was it that led you to decide to do a song in English? Was
I
it your
mean,
first, or have you done others in English?
actually, it's kind of funny. I started making music in English back in Hong Kong. That's how I started it, because I find like rhyming patterns and all that was much more simpler in English compared to Cantonese. It's only that I've arrived to Canada that I started writing in Cantonese.
Interesting.
So it's a full circle now. But I guess the decision was to kind of open up to a bigger audience, and I felt like the phrase "chill out" was came out at the beginning of the song. It only makes sense that the other lyrics came out in English as well. But I purposely put like Cantonese, like just 2 words in
Oh,
it.
you did? Because
Yeah.
I speak a tiny bit of Cantonese, and I was
Yeah.
thinking, does that mean yat yat fang gong? Everyday work?
What did I say at the end? It was like uh I just said like everyone. I basically said everyone chill out, and I said everyone to chill out in Cantonese as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the things, uh, you seem to have a real love of language. And when I've
Mm.
seen you rap in Cantonese, it's just incredible how, you're like a tornado on stage. And I'm curious where you learned your love of language.
Ah, I feel I I learned about making music and production back when I was studying in the UK, where I was inspired by a lot of artists there, where they use a lot of electronic music and to make music. And I feel like now looking back, I know a lot of them came from like immigrants background too, so they kind of combine their language and their style into that. But I guess my love of language was my idea to like start making music in Cantonese. That was just the kind of the starting point of me making music. Uh, I yeah, I just wanted to fill the gap of like Cantonese urban music, if that's a yeah.
And how did you feel when you started doing it in Cantonese as opposed to English? Did it have more meaning for you or not, or was it
It
just
was
seamless
tough.
and that you study both languages? So
like like I know a lot of like creatives, they think they like to like come up with like new stuff, but I'm not like that. I very much know where my inspirations are from, and uh it was hard for me to write in Cantonese because there wasn't too many people that I could directly like draw from.
yeah,
It was more like ballads and like that kind of thing. Back in Hong Kong, there's less of you know synth pop or like other genres. Yeah.
interesting. And one of the things is we're seeing more artists immigrating to Vancouver from Hong Kong
Mm.
and other parts of Canada and other countries. I'm wondering what it was like for you starting fresh in Vancouver.
I was blessed. uh, I had some relatives that lives in Vancouver for quite a bit now, like maybe 30, 40 years. So that got me like covered for a long time. And having societies from Hong Kong here, or like small communities that like helped me integrate with the Vancouver community helped a lot. And meeting Taiwan Fest and all those like bigger communities as well just made it a lot more easier compared to my experience back in the UK. Like Vancouver is so welcoming.
Oh, that's good to hear. And what were the biggest challenges?
uh, I, I mean, I think it's still a little bit hard to meet new people in Vancouver for some reason. Maybe I'm not as open-minded or like open to talking to people on the street as much as like
It might not
uh
be you, Handwash, it might
yeah
be the
what
city.
yeah yeah, but otherwise I think like it's just a different experience because like living in the UK, it's like it's still most people are like born and raised there. There's less of a there's less like first generation immigrants, I guess.
Yeah.
That's maybe the word.
And what years were you in the UK? And then when did you come to Vancouver?
2013 to 2017. That was when I was in the UK. I went back to Hong Kong 2017, and I moved here in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
And and have you ever felt stereotyped in any way in Vancouver?
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay. You don't
It,
have to share it if you I don't want you to,
yeah.
pick
It,
away at unhappy incidents, but if you have any thoughts about stereotypes or maybe what young people from Hong Kong and
mhm.
what do Canadians need to know about them?
uh, to be honest, my experience with like people from other countries, I have this, I put on this, uh, how should I put it? I'm very understanding if they don't know what Hong Kong is, even like
Mhm.
because I think it's a very small city and you can't really even call it a country. So I understand people wouldn't really know where I come from, and they identify me as Chinese. And in my opinion, I think that's okay. But if they are interested, I'll definitely explain more to them as I grow to know each other more. But uh, I feel like to me, Hong Kong and Hong Kong's culture and like the different parts of China, all their cultures are very different from each other.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you don't really feel that Hong Kong is it's not a Chinese city, or at least maybe it's going that way now, that it has
yeah,
its own personality and its own kind of zeitgeist and
yeah, I think like that's the very unique part of like Hong Kong. Like to be honest, I spend a lot of time thinking of what's being a Hong Kong or what's like Hong Kong's culture. What is it even? Is it just a mixture of like more traditional Chinese values of like that with the with Britain's like influence during the 20th century? Is that the only thing, or is there more to it? And knowing that my roots from my parents and all that they like migrated from China to Hong Kong. Uh like who am I? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And is your ancestral kind
Mhm.
of homeland, so to speak, like with your ancestors, is it from Guangdong or is it from another
Yeah.
part of China?
Yeah. So I know that my grandma and my grandpa like so okay. My grandpa was born in South America,
Oh,
but he
wow.
was shipped back to Guangdong, and then they eventually get married with my grandma, and they had like six children, and they decided to move to Hong Kong in I guess around like 1940s, 50s.
Hmm. Interesting. And so
Yeah.
when you hear the word Chinese,
Hmm.
do you think of it as a language or an ethnicity or a race or a nationality
I,
or all of the above?
I think it's yeah. I assume it's a nationality for most people. Like they would, yeah.
Okay.
They when they say they I guess people won't even like talk to me like, oh, are you? They usually don't ask me even if you're Chinese or not. They would just put me in that box, which I'm not uncomfortable with, but at the same time, I know that I'm also not that, and I probably put them in certain boxes in my head as well, which yeah.
Yeah, well, with the Hong Kong, like when
Mhm.
I think of Hong Kong people, I think of, and I don't want to stereotype in my own way, but
Yeah.
they tend to be resourceful. They have a good sense of humor,
Mm.
not a huge ego. They can survive, like
Yeah.
they could deal with change and adaptable and
Mhm.
quick. Um, is that
Yeah.
a fair description
Yeah,
of
I
you?
think that's a very common like uh explanation of like Hong Kongers, or like at least back in the 80s and 90s when the economy
Yeah,
was like flourishing back then. Uh I feel like now it's like a lot more complex with Chinese influence. It's like I don't know if my generation align with that mentality anymore, but at the same time it's definitely influenced like
yeah.
our parents' generation and
And how important is you Chinese or Cantonese for
Mm.
the culture of Hong Kong?
So sorry, could you
Well, I'm
elaborate?
curious about like language. Some people say language is culture.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering, and you're somebody who works a lot with language and
Hmm.
pays a great deal of attention to language. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about
Yeah.
language as it relates to culture.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. There's that in different languages, there are certain words or phrases that you can be translated in many ways. And I think that ties with a person's identity and the a language a person speaks almost ground what they think about in certain aspects, like what words they could use in their vocabulary. And I feel like Cantonese, or like at least there's also this differentiate between Guangdong's Cantonese and like Hong Kong's Cantonese.
Yeah.
There's words that links, but also there's words that I guess influenced by like English a lot too, and I find that like very interesting as well. But yeah, that's kind of my answer. Like language is a huge part of like one's identity.
And I'm wondering about family traditions, Handwash, and if you have any family traditions that might surprise people, especially if they have stereotypes about people from Hong Kong.
Yes, Hong Kong. I guess if you ask me to describe Hong Kong people to other people, I would say they are probably the cruelest and the coolest people in the world. Where
You said
they,
cruelest and coolest?
yeah, like
Okay.
coolest as in like not like
Oh, I see, lacking emotion.
yeah, exactly, of
Okay.
lacking emotion. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I
uh,
agree with you, but that's your view. That's your view.
like in terms of coolness, I don't mean that they are not they're not passionate in with their family or whatnot. Is the ability to express their emotions or like intimacy. I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, one of the things I was also wanted to ask you about was the Third Culture Collective, because this is
Mhm.
very interesting. Can you explain what it is?
Hmm. So it came up with an idea of like, because through the Hong Kong communities in Vancouver, I've met a lot of other fellow musicians that have roots from Hong Kong. Either they migrated like a while back, or they were born and raised here. I find that we we in terms of our music career, we are on very similar levels. So I felt like we could start a collective that would help each other. And the very funny, like we didn't actually started this ourselves. Like it was a person that was, he has his parents' roots were from Hong Kong, and he wanted to link all of us together. That's how we met, and that didn't go as well as planned. So we decided to like start our own thing, and the name for Culture Collective was just this idea of like we seeing our future. Like under like if we would base in Canada from now on, like what would we become in the future? Like what would our kids become? And that's kind of for culture, right?
Interesting. Yeah. And now I want to ask you about the music video for East Side.
Mm.
It was filmed in Vancouver's Chinatown.
Hmm.
And what was the inspiration for this song?
So I have a day job that I work in Chinatown, so I see that every day, and the song kind of came to me as an idea of like, oh, there's a whole town in North America which is inspired by Chinese culture, although it's not like built by them. But how could these people be so interested and like to make a whole town out of that? Like and seeing me as a Hong Konger being so kind of like unimpressed or like with myself, with my own culture, I'm not like proud of it, and seeing other people's being like interested in it makes me like generates these like feelings, and I just wanted to kind of document and show fellow Hong Kongers like, oh wow, actually this unique thing that we have is actually interesting. Yeah.
And it was also fascinating how
Mm-hmm.
the filming and
Yeah.
you were in these different locations and just full of energy and
Mm-hmm.
expression and was there something you were trying to do in that way as well, like
Mm-hmm.
visually?
Yeah, the video was I came up with the idea with Johnny, and he uh we basically we knew that we want to shoot in Chinatown, and we were like, what's Chinatown, like what's there, and we were like, these people, like there's these different like stereotypes that maybe we could play about of like typical people that we will see there, and that's where the idea came, where I would dress up as like these different stereotypes of people that would be in Chinatown, and would kind of sing this song of like uh me being interested and trying to be proud of my own identity. Yeah.
I almost wondered as I was watching it
Mhm,
whether there were aspects of you going to Chinatown
mhm.
almost the same way that the old rappers would go to the Bronx, or and and whether that was part of the what you were doing there.
Yeah, it definitely was closer to that, where it's like a very, you know, I've always heard story of like Chinatown being very different like 30 years ago or something, but the Chinatown I know is like this, and yeah.
And getting back to your new video, Chill Out,
Mhm.
um, how did you get the idea, or Juggle? It's Juggle
Mhm. Yeah,
parentheses Chill
yeah,
Out. Um, how did you get the idea for this song?
yeah. So very much like I wanted to change what I make. Like a lot of I was performing a lot of Cantonese songs, and I was performing with with a band from Vancouver as well. And I felt like I wanted something to connect with the audience. Not that they can't connect with Cantonese songs. It's more that I think language adds another layer of understanding to the audience. That's so I had the intention of like writing an English song from the beginning, and I'm like, what can I write about that everyone can relate to? Uh,
Mhm.
and and this idea of like juggling came to me, where I feel like the modern artist culture is very like grind and hustle, and you have to like
Yeah, it
always be
almost seemed
working.
autobiographical.
Exactly. And I'm just like, this is like everyone's life now that I know of, so let's write a song about that at the same time that tries to steer away from b- being so much goal oriented
And
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 kind
and
of
what's
have
been the
fun
react
sometimes.
what's been the reaction to the song Handwash and the video?
But the videos, the video is not bad. Like, I mean, I think it involved a lot of people. That's why like it's going somewhere for some reason. At the same time, it's not as reaching as East Side though. But
Oh, interesting.
this, yeah,
I found it was very polished and catchy.
thank you.
And it's now, how do you see your music evolving in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Yes. So um, I've mentioned that I have a day job working in Chinatown. So it's actually a synthesizer store that I work in. So lately I've been exploring a little bit more. Like I've always used my computer and like, software and synthesizers on my computer to make music. But now I'm stirring towards to like more electronic music and how that could combine with what I have, and knowing that I have written in English, in Cantonese, in Mandarin. I feel like all those three languages could come together in the future, and I see myself using those with like together, like combine them and use them together, and try
Kind of
to make
integrate them
this.
into one piece. Interesting.
Mhm. Yes.
And this will be my last question is
Okay.
50 years from now,
Yes.
how do you want people to remember Handwash?
Oh, 50 years later. Uh, I, I, I really don't want to, because to me, hand wash is just a name for all the things I create and I make, and I try not to let people. I try to not. Uh, I make things and I put them out, and I don't force what people think of it. I just want them to make their own interpretation. So I mean, as long as they remember hand wash as a person that's from Hong Kong, I guess. I don't. Yeah, I've never thought of that. 50 years, it's a long time.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, I'll let you go now. And thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you,
story. I
Charlie.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, and I want to just let the audience, anyone who's watching this, know you have to see Handwash live to really catch how incredible entertainer you are. You're really something,
Thank you.
and we're lucky to have you in Vancouver. Okay, I'll let you go now, Handwash, but thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, and I wish you the best. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
See you.